So let's talk about light bulbs, air filters, water softener, salt, pest control. Probably ought to toss in yard care here as well,
Yeah.
depending on the home. These are things that I consider to be light maintenance of just maintaining a home. And leases will vary of what your responsibilities are, so it's important for you to know the lease. But
So
let's talk about it.
general, what is a tenant supposed to take care of versus a landlord? When do I call the landlord or the property manager and say, "Hey, come replace my light bulb," or what do I do? Just in general, what would
Excellent
you?
point. So I think before answering that question, I want to back up 1 second. It's when you're taking possession, what should the home look like? Might be a good place for us to start. Because if your lease says that you're responsible for the light bulbs when you move out, well, maybe you should make sure the light bulbs are in when you moved in.
Or the stove or the water heater
And that really ties into kind of our inspections a little bit, so we'll get into there. So there might be some overlap here, but the idea of when you first take possession of the house is it should be broom clean, not spotless. There's a difference there, right?
Yeah.
But it should be broom clean and it should be functioning. And then you're supposed to maintain it going forward. So if all the light bulbs are there, the theory is when they burn out, you get the joy of replacing them. You know, it should be your responsibility to do that. Same with air filters is the home should have a new air filter when you move in. Should have, topped off on water softener, salt, and the fridge filters don't have to be changed out, but ideally if they could be, because those last a little bit longer than a standard filter out there, but that's one of those things to look at.
what about screens on windows?
They should absolutely be there. Whether it's
No cuts in them, no holes.
they should have the ability to keep out little critters on there.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, some homes don't have them, and sometimes you think, well, I'll never open that window, so it doesn't matter to me. But at the same time, you should go through and document the way it was. I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but looking at these light maintenance things is you as a tenant are responsible because you're the one that's there consuming those operations in the home, So light bulbs is an easy one to me. Like if you like to sit in the dark, then don't worry about changing it. But just be mindful at the time you move out that you have to have that light bulb functioning.
So it's pretty much got to be in the same condition as when you moved in.
Yep. I think that's a good rule of thumb on there.
Okay.
But let's talk about air filters specifically for a little bit. Probably one of the most expensive things in a home is the air conditioning system. We just replaced ours at our house. This is a shameless plug for home warranties. I paid $850 through the home warranty for an $8,000 system. Best money I've ever spent, right?
Right. Yeah.
So anyhow, but those systems are expensive. They can be in the thousands of dollars. And if you have a home that has 2 or 3 load zones, multiply that by 2 or 3. So if you're renting a really large home, now you're caring for a system in that home that the care of that air filter could be a huge impact.
So why is the air filter so important? How does that affect the running of the furnace? And why would a tenant possibly be liable, or why would they care that?
Yeah. So let's go on that premise that, you got an expensive component of the home, but one of the things that can, and I apologize for my English here, could bugger it up. To Americans, the word bugger doesn't mean a whole lot, but if you're British, and I apologize. But but if you fail to change those filters and dust and debris gets in and it starts to bind to the grease on the fan wheel and the wheel has a hard time turning, now it becomes imbalanced, then the bearings go out and the fan motor might cost $800-900 to repair, and the only reason it failed is because it got gunked up. Well, who gunked it up? It was the dust and debris that got in there because you didn't change the filters. Or if you put a filter in but you don't change it for 8 months and it gets so clogged that the thing can't breathe and it starts to work itself overload, and all of a sudden the capacitor starts to fail, or the condenser motor starts to fail because it can't get enough oxygen through the system to function. Well, whose fault is that for not changing the air filter? Well, it could be yours. So they'd have grounds to ask you to fix that device on there. So
the landlord would have.
The landlord has grounds to do it. Yeah. Now, enforceability and grounds are two different things. You have to prove certain things to it. But if you don't have a record of you changing out those air filters, and he can show that the last filter that was there was so clogged with gunk, his position is much stronger than yours would be, right? So you want to position yourself to be, to protect yourself. It's so easy just to keep a little log of when you change filters. Nowadays we have this technology called the cell phone. They just take a picture of the day you changed it.
Yeah.
Here's my before, here's my after. What better proof could you possibly have? The pictures don't lie, right?
Yep. And tenants can look at one of our other videos and go into depth on how to actually record and document and take those pictures, because that's a huge component of this process.
Yeah.
Because last thing somebody wants to do is have to pay $8,000, $5,000, whatever the amount is for a new furnace, because it's pinned on them that they didn't do something correctly, and they have to respond or repair or replace that furnace.
So most judges will take a look to see, well, how old was the system. They'll prorate it out or they'll adjust it. But even if it's just $1,000, it's not worth the hassle.
Not worth it at all. Yeah, you want to avoid it.
But here's the question I have to tenants, and I'd love to see some feedback from our viewers on this. Of why wouldn't you want to change the air filter? You're the one that's living there. What does the air filter
Okay, I'll answer
capture?
that question.
Yeah.
I'll answer that because I don't own the property. I'm just renting. It's the owner's responsibility to maintain the home and take care of it. Right? How many tenants are out there siding with me? It's the owner's responsibility to take care of it.
But here's the concept. You're living in that home. You're the one that's sucking and breathing that air. Wouldn't air quality be something of importance to you?
No, I smoke. I don't care. Like I'm playing devil advocate right here, but in reality, who's on the hook for doing that? Who is responsible for replacing that furnace?
The bottom line is, in most lease agreements, it is the responsibility of the tenant to do so, right? So if a homeowner comes through and does an inspection, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and he finds that that's not done, it's actually a finable issue. Like, hey, you're supposed to change these. This isn't done. Here's a $50 bill to you.
Is it spelled out in the lease? Would it tell them whether the tenant's supposed to do it?
I know our lease has it specified in there that it's their responsibility and that it is finable if we determine that they haven't done it.
Okay, so something to remember, that read the lease.
Yep.
Find out from up front really if it's your responsibility or not. If it's just another question to ask them while you're signing a lease agreement.
But if you think about it, let's say that a landlord charges you $50 for that lease violation. The filter's $5.95.
For the cheap ones,
yeah,
that should be replaced every
so
month. Or
1/10 of the expense of a fine.
Yeah,
you could have that changed out, and you do it every 30 days.
I think it's not it's not expensive, but it's something you have to add on to your list of things to do. It's just a pain in the neck. You just have to remember to do it.
Well, Scott, that's I think one of the benchmarks of a really good landlord is they'll send out periodic reminders every once in a while saying, "Hey, start of summer, just suggesting to you change your filter."
Yeah,
you know, have that kind of communication. Our company does that as a courtesy, just because it's helpful. It's a win-win scenario, right? Because the landlord's happier if the tenant's changing it. The tenant should enjoy the benefits of having cleaner air to breathe and mitigating any risk they might have in the liability. And I, as a landlord who goes and does the inspections, I can report back that everybody's happy with it. And when you have two happies, it makes other things down the road much easier.
I'd be very surprised if it's not outlined in anyone's lease agreement. Now, if it's a professional company, more likely to be there. If it's a private owner, maybe it's not. Yeah. But a property owner, all you have to do is replace that furnace one time, and you learn real quick that to have it in there. And so, as a tenant, you just want to avoid the conflict. So if you find out your lease doesn't have it, go and ask the landlord, talk to them about that, who is responsible, and just make sure there's no issue, like get rid of the potential problem.
Yeah. Kind of shifting over to water softener salt, you may or may not like soft water in your home, but the homeowner's put it in there and he's required you, or he asked you to do, make sure that the salt is in there to soften the water. The reason behind that is soft water is easier on the appliances, the washer, the dryer, the water heater. Water heaters now are about $1,500 to $2,000 to replace. If it builds up with heavy water sediments, it wears it out a lot faster, and so the homeowners put that in there to protect that part of his investment. The dishwasher can get corroded on the inside with hard water buildup, or the heating elements. So whether you like soft water or not, the homeowner may have put it in there and required it as a condition of the lease. Your opinion, be damned, so to speak. It's irrelevant. You've agreed to take on that lease with that responsibility. And it's like, now, what if I
extra
don't?
cost.
What if I don't put it in? It's $5 a bag, whatnot, and might be $15 a quarter for you. It is an expense, but at the same time, there's some benefits that a tenant could enjoy if that system's up and running properly, right? I mean, you think about the shirts that we wear. Soft water is much softer on the wash cycle, that your clothes will last longer, they're brighter because of soft water. They've proven that time and time again. If you've got a shower that has lots of buildup in it, soft water reduces that, and so it's easier in your cleaning, saves you time. So there's some advantages to having soft water out there. But if you've never had it before in your home, like people who relocate here from out of areas, like, hard water, what's that? I'm from Montana. We don't have hard water, or whatever.
What I know about soft water is that I can never get it off my body when I'm showering. It just feels like you're always a little slimy, but it's off, right? It's the soap's off, but anyway.
But there's a reason they put it out there, so it's just understanding, that.
Okay.
We'll edit that out.
What else do you have? Pest control?
Yeah, so let's talk about pest control and yard care, kind of tongue-in-cheek, right? So,
again, is it the landlord or is the tenant or the owner supposed to come and have the yard sprayed for bugs? Yeah. I've gotten calls before from a tenant, there's spiders in the house. As an owner, should I go and jump in and hurry and have it sprayed and cleaned up, or is that something the tenant should call and take care of? Yeah. So how we do our leases, I'm just talking from our company, is if there's an issue in the first 30 days, we'll go out and have a treatment done. But after the first 30 days, it's 100% on the tenant to tackle on there. So, but that's, again, it comes down to understanding what your lease is. Yep. And now I'm on the opposite side. So as a property owner, I've taken care of that. Not in our company. I'm just talking about personally as a property owner. I've taken care of the regular maintenance. So I just hire a company to come and they spray every quarter. And so it's just an ongoing thing. I know it's resolved. If they have some kind of bug or whatever infestation hopefully there's no infestation. But if there's an infestation, that's actually another good point. What happens if it's extreme? But if they see a spider here and there, it doesn't mean that that it is infested. They're just a spider. Take care of a tenant. But resilient, if it's a common problem, then it should be identified in the lease. With mine, I agreed to do that with my tenant. So I just put it as a cost of ownership. Now, not everybody's landlord or property management company will do that. Yeah. Case in point. So it's just another expense maybe that the tenant needs to sign up for and resolve if they're worried about it. Some people don't really care. They'd rather not spend the $30 to have a pest control company come out and spray. They just we live with spiders and we enjoy them, or whatever. Well, here in the Southwest, we have potential scorpions. We certainly have ants. Ants, mice. We have the cockroach, mice, and that monthly pest control or the quarterly pest control is usually targeting, the spiders, ants, scorpions, the creepy crawlies. Mice is a seasonal. Where I live, I'm near some farmland, and every time the temperature changes, I get a mouse in my house. Okay. But no amount of spraying is going to solve that problem. Sure. You have to kind of look at that as an ongoing, but it's kind of interesting, like, I'm the tenant, why would I care if there's a mouse in the house, right? Well, he's pooping in your corners, he's nibbling on your food, he's scaring your wife or kids or whatever. So it impacts you, but I think it's important again to go back and see, what does the lease require me to do on there? This kind of ties into a little bit of
landlord type function. I'm going to tell kind of a funny story because in one of our units right now, we have an owl that has made a nest inside the fireplace.
Wow.
Right, it's a gas fireplace, so he's nested in there, and by law, your standard pest control guy can't remove wildlife.
Okay.
Because an owl is not considered a pest, right? He's wildlife, but our lease doesn't cover wildlife. You know, it's not a clause that I have in there. It's like,
well, some might be protected species too.
yeah, it's like, well, what do you do? And so in this particular case, that's kind of an area that the lease doesn't talk about it. It defaults as the problem of the homeowner, or the responsibility of the homeowner. So the homeowner and we contacted Department of Wildlife Resources, or DNR, you know, I think that's what it's called, Department of Natural Resources.
Yeah.
And they came out and flushed him away. You know, they took care of him. You know, they relocate him, basically.
Did they charge you?
In this particular case, there was no charge because it's part of our tax dollars.
Okay.
You know, there's little things out there that we look at, but you know, if the lease wasn't specific, the tenant really should be responsible for it. I think that's a good example to have a discussion on.
So, so just remember that if you see one mouse, right, that does not mean that there's an infestation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we as tenants feel like because I'm renting a house, everything is the landlord's responsibility. Don't be afraid to just take care of some of these issues yourselves, right? You don't want to burden a landlord or a property management company because there's a mouse in your house. Just go get a trap and set it and do your
And
best
99% of the time, it is your responsibility. Now, if the homeowner has a structural issue on the house, let's say there's an opening in the foundation, let's say a former pipe that's no longer has been abandoned, but the pipe's open, and it's an entry point for that mouse. Now that should be a responsibility of the homeowner to seal that off,
fix that.
you know, because it's part of a structural repair to the home. But the mouse itself is your responsibility, but maybe solving this entry point is the landlord's.
Cool.
So I think a good key here in stepping away from this topic and moving on to the next one is it really comes down to communication. Having a good relationship with your landlord instead of an adversarial one, where if you call them and say, you know, this darn mouse is in my house again, what are you going to do about it? Well, all of a sudden you've created barriers, right? You're just in there, rather than calling and saying, hey, just let you know there's a mouse in the house, I'm putting out some traps, but can you come over and help walk through and see if there's any entry points that we can fix? You know, now you're taking a position of, I'm a partner with you and the homeowner, let's solve it together. I'm fine getting the mouse, doing that because I'm responsible for it.
Huge. Yeah.
But now you're helping that homeowner, the landlord, take care of the property better for you. And what this does in the long run, when it comes time to negotiate your lease, if you've been a partner in the process, they're more likely not to jack your rents up or to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
But if you've been a proverbial dweeb in the process and a difficult tenant, they're like, say, you know what? I really don't want that person in here any longer because they're more of a hassle to me.
May affect your ability to get that renewed.
Yeah, so there's some advantages of having good communication out there. I think it's a good topic to go into.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Last thing I want to hit on this topic though is yard care, because the tenant generally is responsible for mowing and trimming and weed control, right? But trimming trees may not be the tenant's responsibility. And the courts look at it as trees are part of home ownership maintenance versus occupancy maintenance. And so, just case in point, I have a 40-foot pine tree that's at my house that I want to have removed, but it's growing up through the power lines. Well, the quote
Power company wants them gone.
Well, the quote to remove that tree came in at $2,500. For a tenant to say, well, gosh, I'm just going to let it sit out there because it's not bugging me.
That's what a tenant
right?
would do.
So I think there's a line to be understood there that, as a general rule, maintaining the trees in the every 2-3 years to have it trimmed really should fall into the homeowner as part of home ownership. But it's the keeping the lawn mowed, trimmed, dog turds picked up, if you have pets.
Yep.
Make sure you don't have weeds growing up through the rocks uncontrollably, maintaining that kind of a spray out there.
Yeah.
Those are tenant responsibilities, again, going back to the lease on there. But maintaining the old family oak, it comes down to the homeowner, especially if they start to grow into the roof and causing home damage. That's the homeowner's responsibility.
And there's some weird scenarios that might be a really special tree that's dear to the homeowner, and if the tenant thinks they can go and just cut it down because it's a nuisance, you'll be in a world of hurt if you just go start removing property that's not part of it. Yeah. So good discussions to have with the homeowner. HOAs. Sometimes HOAs take care of all the yard. You don't have to. That's the joy of being in an HOA is that yard maintenance is taken care of. Yeah. Paid for by either the tenant or the landlord. Yeah. Like that's a negotiable item still, but they would take care of that stuff.
Yeah. Knowing what that responsibility is. At the end of the day, you want to live in a place that looks nice, right? That's in general what most people do.
Yeah, most people do. But as you go into living into a property, tenants, like, who wants to do yard work, right? Yeah. Like if it's not important to me, which sometimes it's really important, but I just don't have time. Same with anyone else out there. It's hard to make time for those things that get put last on the plate, and yard care, quite honestly, would be probably one of those. And I've had several tenants come to me and say, "Oh, great! I'm glad you have a yard. I love weeding. I love taking care of it. I love fruit trees. I love pruning. I love mowing the lawn." Now they say that to me, so I'm more willing as a landlord to sign that lease and accept them. And then I drive by the property a month later, 2 months later, and there's weeds all over the place. And so don't say things just to get you that agreement. If you're not a yard care person, tell the landlord or the owner that you're not, but you'll figure out a way to do it, right? Yeah. The loaner wants to drive by. We'll talk about inspections here in a bit, but when they drive by, they want to see that the property is being cared for. Outside is a really good indication of what it looks like inside.
Boy, that's psychology 101, right?
Sometimes, yeah.